Oh. Hello, everyone. My name is Triple P, TRIPPLE and I am your astrology pimp, your astrology prophet, and your astrology priest. And today's 7 Seas Astrology Prophetics video topic will be the 3 deadly poisons. And I'm sure most of you guys have never heard the concept of the 3 poisons before. However, as you may know by now, I utilize concepts from basically all spiritual religions, beliefs, and concepts just to get my idea across. However, the 3 poisons is a concept that was originated and came from the Buddhists. So the 3 poisons are basically the 3 primal or the 3 fundamental root causes of all suffering and all pain. And the 3 fundamental causes of all pain and suffering is greed, anger, and ignorance. So again, greed, anger, and ignorance. In most cases, or many cases, sometimes they may use anger in reference to hatred also. I think aversion, I think that's also one of the terms that are used. However, we are particularly talking about greed, anger, and hatred. And one may ask, why is this important to understand the 3 fundamental uh, principles behind all pain and suffering? Is because greed, anger, and hatred not only affects each individual, however, they affect all individuals as well, whether it be directly or indirectly. Your greed, your anger, and your ignorance will affect others as well. So therefore, it is not only harmful to you, but having an understanding how it affects others, it is crucial to analyze. So first of all, let's look at greed. And most of us, again, everyone know what greed is. Everyone know what greed is, and everyone knows what anger is. However, most individuals may not be so aware of the term ignorance. When it comes down to, from a spiritual perspective, ignorance is a completely different uh, concept rather than what the average individual may think of ignorance. When they hear the word ignorance, they tend to think of ignorance as just being unaware. Yes, as being unaware. However, when speaking from a spiritual perspective, the word ignorance usually refers to being ignorant of one's true self, one's true identity, and one's true nature. So when it again speaking from a spiritual perspective, the term ignorance usually relates to one being aware or conscious of its true or him or her true identity. However, in this particular case, that's what we're going to be talking about today, ignorance of one's true nature and one's true identity. So again, basically the 3 are, again, greed, anger, or hatred, and ignorance. And by now, most of us already have had some experience with these negative emotions, because all of these emotions are actually a part of the human condition. And the human condition, we all have greed at some point, we all have anger or hatred at some point, and we all are ignorant at some point. So these are emotions or feelings that one cannot avoid or escape from no matter what. These again are just part of the human condition. Some other human conditions are happiness, love, and sadness, things of that sort. These things just come naturally with being a human. However, but we're talking about these concepts from a spiritual perspective and how they affect us in a positive or a negative way as well. And I think, I can't remember which video it was. I think the video was, yes, I think the video was titled Where the Hell is Hell. I think you should check it out, because that goes into some depths about what I'm talking about today. Also, where the hell is hell, uh, in reference to greed. Yes, in reference to greed, I use some illustrations in reference to the 6 realms of Buddhism. One of the realms being the hungry ghost. The hungry ghost would be a good uh, analogy to also demonstrate greed. Again, if you go back and watch that video, I talk about the actual 6 realms of samsara, if I may say, the cycles of birth, death, and so forth and so forth and so on. However, like I said, but I'm talking about greed specifically, greed, hatred, and anger being the same thing, and then also ignorance, or even to be more crudely or cruelly speaking, some individual would say instead of using ignorance, they would say stupidity, but that sounds a little harsh. But however, all is the same. But anyhow, back to what I was saying. So, but also before I go in the greater detail, if we look back at, I can't remember what video it was. I'm starting to do quite a bit of videos right now. But anyhow, uh, one video, I can't remember what the title was. But anyhow, nevertheless, what I said in that video was that all feelings are uh, part of the root feeling is happiness or freedom, if I may say happiness or freedom, but we're going to utilize happiness in this particular context. So all feelings come from happiness. They just fall on a different spectrum of the scale. So when we are sad, it's, sad versus happiness, happiness on one end of the scale and then sad on the other end of the scale. However, all emotions come from happiness, and the root cause of happiness is knowing thyself and knowing one's true nature, one's true identity. And only then, when we know who we are, then we can truly be happy, because at its core, we are naturally happy by birth. Again, we might not come to this conclusion naturally. However, when we tend to find ourselves, we find happiness as well. So again, looking at happiness as, let's say, being on the left side, and then greed, because we're going to go over greed first, looking at happiness on one side of the scale and then greed on the other side of the scale. Again, happiness being the root natural nature of each individual, but we don't know that because we are not aware of who we are as a person or as an entity per se. So again, happiness being on one side of the scale and then greed being on the other side of the scale, the root cause of the greed is because of not being happy. And again, like I said, the only solution to being happy is to actually know thyself, to know who one's true nature really is. And then only when we come to this understanding who we are, we will find happiness well. So happiness is somewhat of a byproduct of knowing who you are. So if we understand that knowing who we are brings happiness, and only then happiness can be achieved, we will tend to find happiness, or we perceive happiness to be found in objects. Objects such as relationships, material things, houses, cars, jewelries, clothing, certain things of that nature. We tend to believe that we will find happiness in these things. However, happiness can only be achieved when one individual finds out who and what they truly are at the core, because again, the true self is happiness itself. So again, so without having this understanding, we tend to look for external things to get external validations through material things such as, again, money, houses, cars. And there's nothing wrong, again, with these things. However, I am saying that if you are pursuing these things, thinking that happiness will be achieved, you are incorrect. And I am certainly guaranteed, if you go and ask anyone who has achieved a lot of material possessions, they will tell you at its core, it does not make them happy. They may feel some type of contentment and relaxation and ease of life per se. Things might make life easier, because obviously it would be easier if you have to get somewhere in a certain period of time. It would be easier to take transportation such as a car, bus, even a bicycle. You would get there much faster than actually walking. You would exert less energy, again, using a laundry mat, or having actually a machine at home, a personal machine. If you have 12 baskets of clothes to wash by hand, it's obviously that it would be a lot easier if you wash these 12 baskets of clothes either at a laundromat, or if you have a machine at home, that would be a lot less time consuming and less energy consuming as well. So again, by no means I am stating that we should not obtain, try to obtain anything to make our lives easier. What I'm talking about is having a unquenchable thirst for greed, for things, and thinking that the things will actually pursue, when we pursue these things, thinking that when we pursue these things, happiness will accompany these achievements or these possessions, whatever the case may be. So greed here, what I'm talking about today, is not again having goals or not having aspirations to achieve certain things. What I'm talking about here today is having a unquenching thirst, a thirst that never ever ever ends. It's like kind of like someone needing water, or someone needing food. However, they are seeking sand and dirt or sand and stones. And so when you want water, only water can quench your thirst. If you're hungry, only food can quench your thirst. However, because of our ignorance, and as we go on, we'll see that all of these things are related to each other. So as we again, we need water, we want food, we need water, we need food. However, because of our ignorance, we tend to believe that something else like stones or sand or dirt or dust can quench our thirst or feed or fulfill our hunger. And that is impossible. So that is what greed does. Greed allows us to believe that something else could quench our thirst other than water. So what happens is over a period of time, we will come to the conclusion and understand that there is no solution, there is no quick fix to this answer other than actually finding out who we are at the core. And only then this greed will dissipate. And again, how we look at greed, we tend to think of greed as being something personal. However, again, like I said before, individuals do affect other individuals in the world. They do not necessarily be greedy, and it doesn't affect anyone. For those of you guys who have met somebody who is greedy, they might be greedy in any way, shape, or form, whether it be material things, food, any type of thing. They just want more and more. They cannot cease to. But that does again, that greed. You see that greed inside. Let's say you have some food. You had shared some food. Have some food. You have to share food with a greedy person. That person is constantly going to want more than you. They're never going to share fair. They're always it's gonna be, they're gonna hurt your feelings in some kind of way because you're gonna feel disrespected because they always think that they should deserve more than you. They always want more, on a job, whatever, they want to get more money. Everybody wants more money. Everybody wants to get the maximum, whatever their potential may lead them to achieve. But however, individuals with greed, they tend to sometimes want more than they actually deserve, or they want more than they have actually put the effort into to achieve that thing. So these people who have this greed that cannot be uh, fulfilled, they tend to be greedy in all aspects. Like I said, food, they will eat all the food. They would not have any consideration for you. If you live with a greedy person, you put something in the fridge, what I'm saying, instead of them drinking some of the juice or some of the water, whatever the case may be, it's a constant struggle. They will tend to drink all or eat all the food, or they will just leave you the pieces of the food that they did not necessarily want. They would just leave you the scraps. And then you see greed in corporations and businesses. Corporations pretty much take greed to another level, where they utilize individuals as pretty much cogs in the wheel. And when the wheel kind of wears out, they just change the wheel, change the part, and then they replace that individual who have worked for a company for X amount of hundreds of years, thousands of years, all their lives. They've worked so hard, they've dedicated so much to this particular company, and then as soon as the company find a way that they could actually achieve more finances and get more money, they tend to just replace those individuals. And we see that happening a lot today with technology on the rise, AI and so forth. If you go all across YouTube, you'll see how many companies have fired thousands and tens of thousands of people. By now it's in the hundreds of thousands. And if you add all of the people up together, there most likely will be millions of individuals who have already been fired for this greed that these corporations that they have, for the unquenchable thirst, for this longing to get more resources, get more money, get more stocks, bonds, whatever the case they are trying to accumulate. But they tend, again, that greed shows up when they utilize the individuals not as human beings, but as actually pieces of equipment that they could use and discard once that equipment pretty much breaks down, or that equipment is of no use or of no purpose anymore. So we see greed in all type of areas. We see greed in relationships. Someone just wants more. Someone wants to take more, and someone wants all, and it goes on and on. I don't think nobody. I think everybody has experienced what it means to encounter a greedy person in one shape or form. Whether it be, again, like I said, on the job, it could be in a relationship, it could be at home. We all know greed. Greed is not something that is just isolated and just individuals are greedy all by themselves. To be greedy, you actually there needs to be somebody else and you need to have more than that person. So greed is always involves, it always involves you and somebody else. So like I said again, greed is not just dealing with one individual. We see this greed all throughout society, all throughout history. Men, women, just consistently wanting more, never can get enough, always wanting just more, more, more. So again, greed is something that we all know about, but again, we need to understand the root cause of greed. Again, the root cause of greed is not being happy, not being happy and not being content, because like I said, all emotions came from happiness or freedom. They just are expressed on the other end of the spectrum. And this is one of the Hermetic principles, duality. So there's, as above so below, and so forth and so on. So again, this duality is just expressed in the different happiness is expressed on the other end of the spectrum. We have positive and we have negative. So again, greed is just someone not being happy with their allotment, whatever they have. They feel like they are shortchanged. They feel that they want more. Again, as I continue, you will see that the root cause of all of these things, again, all emotions, again, is happiness and freedom. But again, however, we're utilizing happiness. So again, greed is just not being content, not being happy. But again, as by now you will know that all of my videos pretty much this has the same theme, is that the only way that we can achieve happiness and peace and joy and love and all of these things is to know ourselves, to know who am I, to ask yourself, who am I, and to do self-inquiry. That is the solution to all of our problems, all of our pain and suffering. And that is also the solution to greed, because again, the cause of greed, the root cause of greed is not being happy. Because if you were happy, you would be content. If you were content, why would you want more? Why would you continue to seek? Why would you continue to harm? Why would you continue to steal? Why would you continue to rob? Why would you continue to belittle another human being? All because of this greed. So you see, greed is not just, again, does not affect one individual solely. It affects all individuals. In fact, it affects the whole individuals as a collective, as a whole. Again, because you see corporations affecting hundreds of thousands of people. When they fire these individuals have to go home to homes. They have to go home, and whereas they don't have a job anymore. These individuals have families. These individuals have kids, and these individuals have bills, and so forth and so on. So because of the greed of the corporation that's not taking account of the individual needs, these individuals are set aside and put aside as rubbish. And so again, their greed pretty much veils the individual eye, and they do not see the unity that needs to be seen. And again, the only way you can see another individual as being thyself, as being one, again, love thy neighbor as thyself, is to actually see them as being yourself by knowing thyself. But other than knowing thyself, you will always see individuals as being separate, and we will always continuously consume the individual's energy, their power, their vibrations, and their frequencies. We will take, and we will constantly just consume all of these individuals, and we will consume them like a fire, and we will just pretty much discard them again like rubbish. So again, greed is not just a simple matter. We see the reason there is killings, there's robberies, there's theft, different things of that sort is because you have something I feel like I need, I want, because I am not happy, and you have that, so I must get that from you. That is greed related. Greed, greed, greed. Greed is connected to so much different crime, so much different atrocities in the world. Countries, nations, common nations, and go to smaller nations and smaller countries, and they take all of their resources and they do all of these harmful things in the name of whatever they say the name of. But really, technically, when it boils down to greed. So again, I think that I've beat this horse long enough, because I have two more subjects to go after this. We have hatred and anger, and then we have ignorance. So again, greed is not just a simple, affect one individual. We see again nations and individuals and groups and corporations, and it just goes on and on and on and on. And that's why even from a biblical perspective, the Bible says that for the love of money is the root of all evil. Again, and that is actually one of the most misquoted scriptures in the Bible. For the love of money, it does not say money is the root of all evil. Most individuals think that money is the root of all evil. No, you need money. You need to be able to provide for yourself, for your family, to pay for your bills, and And if you could get a lot of money, get it. I'm not even hating on you for getting no paper. Get the bag if you can. You understand me? Get the bag. That's why they call me Triple P, P-I-M-P. You see what I'm saying? Pimp, prophet, priest. So I'm not against the, I'm not paper hating by no means. But however, I am saying paper chase and have some type of consideration for those who are also chasing the paper, and you don't want to just step on and walk on anybody else just to get the paper. So with that being said, again, why gain it the whole world and then lose the soul? What does a man profit to gain the whole world and lose his soul? Greed. That's what we're talking about here today, losing the soul for greed. So anyhow, let's move on, because again, I think I'm just beating the dead horse with a stick. And by now, I think most of you guys know what I'm talking about, greed. So, but again, the solution to greed is to become happy. And the only way to become happy and content is to know thyself. So, because other than that, we will always find greed to be the thing that we think is the solution to our happiness. But however, that will not solve the problem at all. It would just be one thing after another. We would go after one object after another. When we get one thing, we tend to think that that one thing will solve the problem. However, that one thing will not solve the problem at all. It will just pretty much continue to go down the ladder. Pretty much, greed is like a hole that has no end. You just kind of goes on and on and on. That hole will never, ever, ever be filled. However, but we think that the hole can be filled. But however, I'm here to tell you today that the only solution to greed is to know thyself. And that is what all of these videos are all about, is to knowing thyself. So again, I'm not here to preach a particular religion. I'm not here to preach a particular spirituality or anything of that sort. I'm just promoting you. I'm not here promoting a particular God, entity, or a church, or anything of that sort. Again, I am an existentialist. I'm coming from a neutral perspective. However, the core reason behind these videos is that you know yourself, so you could find some type of closure and find true love, happiness, and then cease, at least subside some of the pain and eliminate suffering, because at all, the root cause of all suffering is not knowing thyself. So let me move right on, because that's kind of going on around the mulberry bush. But anyhow, so we have covered greed, and then we have hatred and anger. So we all know, again, none of these things, none of these topics are new. However, again, these are what the Buddhists consider to be at the root cause of all suffering. And I agree, all of the things that we do are evolved around one or two of these things, or three of these concepts as well. So there's no escaping this. These are facts that these three things are usually at the core of all suffering. So again, the second cause of all suffering would be, again, hatred or anger. And we all know that, again, anger or hatred is something that we tend to not necessarily like, whether we don't like it. Some individuals are naturally angry. Some individuals seems to be angry all the time. And I'm sure any individuals who know somebody who's always angry, nobody really likes to be around you. They might be around you because they tolerate you, because they have no other choice than to tolerate you. So they be around you, if you're a girlfriend or a boyfriend or a friend or a family member or someone close to you, or a boss, or someone who has some type of authority figure over you, or somewhere you may be attached to that person to such degree where it may be detrimental. If you disassociate yourself with that person, you walk away from that person, then there's a price to pay. And that is the only reason most individuals would stay around somebody who is angry all the time, someone who's always have hate and malice and all of this, all of this just hatred, and that's always hating. You know what I'm saying? So again, the only reason most individuals would stay around these individuals that long is because they have no other choice. If you are in a relationship, and whether it be your boyfriend or your girlfriend, that individual is always angry, always angry, always angry. Believe it or not, like I said, they are not just affecting you. Sorry, they're not just affecting themselves, they're affecting you as well. Because there are feelings that comes from these individuals, and these feelings are projected onto you, and then you automatically pick up these feelings, and there's chemical reactions that come about inside the body, stress chemicals, hormones such as cortisol and other chemicals as well. Again, cortisol, adrenaline, And these individuals, is a constant, when you're around these individuals, there's constant tension because you don't know if these individuals are going to explode on you. You don't know what they're going to do. You don't know what they're going to say. They're very irrational, and then sometimes they tend to project. A lot of these individuals who use anger, again, they tend to just use anger as a tool to kind of disarm you, because they feel that if, even if they're right or wrong, anger is a tool that they use in most cases, especially if they're wrong. They would kind of just use this as a tool, especially if they have something, again, that's on, that you can't, you need them in some way, shape, or form. Again, it might be a girlfriend, a boyfriend. You might be living with this individual, sharing the rent. You don't want to be homeless. You feel like, if you back talk or you stand up for yourself, you're going to be on the streets, or again, a job, a boss, employee. It's just this anger, again, is not healthy, not only for the individual, but it also is unhealthy for you, because like I said, again, there are chemicals. The brain produces chemicals. You have cortisol, we have adrenaline. So when you're around these angry individuals, it's always like you're always in a fight or flight situation. The nervous system is always wound up. You're always ready and you're always tense, and it's not good. It's not a good thing to be around angry individuals. And individuals, again, who are that way, they are that way because they do that to protect themselves, because they feel like if they are the loudest, or if they're the most violent, or they're the most angry, no one is gonna dare. Just like the king of the jungle, nobody usually messes with the lion. Some animals do mess with the lions at times, but they kind of, or the elephant per se, they may just be joshing around, but technically they know that these animals, they can't really do much about them, but they could, irritate them to some degree. But however, humans, we tend to think that because we are angry, we're just not affecting other individuals, but we're actually affecting all individuals. Again, when you are angry and you let's say you have someone who is a customer service, and then you go to get service for this individual, and this individual may have not served you as fast as you have liked, or whatever the case may be. The product was maybe not up to standard, or whatever the case may be. But some individuals, when you deal with these individuals as a customer service, and I feel sorry for some of these individuals who are in customer service, because they have to deal with all type of people of all type of walks of life. And some of these people they deal with are very angry, and these people are just, they tend to take things out on you. They will have problems at home, and then they lash out at you, and they just pretty much, you have it because of their situation. They let you have it because they don't have anybody else to let it out on. And that's why you have some people, they say, well, come home and kick the dog, because the dog suffers as well. And so nobody goes unpunished when you're dealing with angry individuals. And you have angry individuals, and this anger also leads to the hatred. And hatred, again, because hatred and anger comes from feeling like somebody did something to you, again, because of not knowing who you are. No one can do anything to you at its core, because what you are at its core, the true nature that you are, the isness, the I amness, and the oneness, that is like, you are like Teflon. You are like the Teflon that's in a non-stickable pan. You cannot, nothing could actually touch you. There's nothing that actually can come on you. However, because of your lack of awareness, and your lack of understanding, and your lack of consciousness of who you really are, which is the next thing, ignorance, you will see that, again, no one could actually make you angry. No one could make you happy. No one could make you sad, because who you are at its core is untouchable. But however, because of your lack of knowledge, you tend to believe that, oh, this person made me angry. That person made me angry. This person, I hate this person. I hate that person. And this person didn't really make you angry. It's just because you don't have the capacity, or you don't have the capabilities to control your emotions. You don't have any control over your own feelings. So therefore, you tend, because you have no control of your feelings, you tend to believe that the way you feel is because the root cause of feeling the way you feel is because of somebody else. And that is what I'm saying to you again. Anger is something that we project onto somebody else. We feel like, I am angry because of this. I am angry because of that. I am angry because of you. You made me angry. You made me hate you. You. Yes, individuals may do hateful things, or things that may provoke. However, the final cause is up to you, how you respond to that thing. That is why they said it's not so much as what happens to you in life, but however, how you respond to things in life. That is what we are talking about today, having some type of control over what happens to you in life. And so therefore, we see this anger, again, not necessarily being something that is harmless. We see this anger transpiring into hatred, because now this one thing that happens, and someone affected you in some shape or form, in a minute way. They may have done something to you, and it may have just rubbed you the wrong way, and then maybe they did it once or twice, and then after that it turn into hatred, and this hatred is the reason. Again, anger, people kill out of anger. People feel like, if you do something to somebody and it really created an anger in them that they cannot control, some people would just kill you. That is how you don't know how many people are dead under this day because someone could not control their emotions and they just allowed their feelings to do whatever they did, and someone's life was taken away. And people do all sorts of things out of anger. People have affairs and all that. When the people rob, steal, I take this from you because you made me angry, so now I'm going to punish you and I'm going to make you pay in some way, shape, or form. Or so anger is not it's a harmless thing. And then when we see anger evolving into hatred, it evolves on a much bigger scale. Anger evolving into nations having hatred towards nations. We see religions having hatred towards each other. This religion hates that religion. This sect hates that sect, and this anger. And so and now we have religious wars. Now we have this one thing that was somewhat supposed to be innocent and supposed to be loving, turning into being hundreds and thousands and hundreds of thousands, even sometimes millions of individuals being slaughtered, killed in the name of religion, in the name of I hate you because of what your belief is. And so this hatred and this anger is not something that just take lightly as well, because again, yes, we all get angry. Again, anger is part of the human condition. We all feel anger at some point, some shape. Even hatred, we might feel hatred at some point. However, but when we come to know who we are at the core, we'll understand that who we are does not have any anger or hatred or any feelings for that matter of fact, because again, like I said, who you are at the core, you are like Teflon. Again, you are like Teflon. Who you are at the core, you are like Teflon. So there is no you to be affected. However, again, when we look at this hatred on a bigger scale, like I said, we have this hatred, we have religious wars, we have all of these crimes and different things in the name of hate, and not in the name of hate, in the name of love. However, it is hatred that is at the root cause as well. Hatred and anger. And so we see hatred, anger again being affected. You don't want to be around anybody who is angry all the time. You don't want to, this anger is somewhat contagious, because when these people, they tend to be angry all the time, they kind of pick at you at some point, and they kind of nag at you at some point. Eventually you will start to become angry as well. You would also develop a hatred or animosity towards these individuals as well. So their characteristics also will actually trickle down to you as well. So, but again, that is one individual speaking from one individual perspective. But again, like I said, nations hate nations. Nations want to take angry because they feel that this particular land was theirs, this particular belief is theirs, and so therefore I mean, that's the real reason behind war, anger and hatred and so forth, and greed. So far we see all of these things coming into play. So however, again, hatred and anger, we could see, I'm sure many of us who, like I said, have come across individuals who have displayed anger and hate, and we basically do everything at cost to avoid these individuals, because these individuals, we just don't like their attitude. They're always angry, always mad about this and that, and then and not even having an understanding from a energetic perspective. We attract who we are. So therefore, again, we don't attract what we want, we attract who we are. So if you're a person that is constantly angry, you are not aware that you're sending out signals as well to the universe, to just whatever, sending out frequencies and vibrations, and that energy has to be met. And so therefore, you will attract individuals, peoples and situations and places that's going to further create that anger. So you're going to create the thing that you are doing, you're going to create more of it. You're going to continuously attract individuals who are continuously going to make you angry. You're going to attract situations that are continuously make you angry as well. So you're going to constantly find anger wherever you look, because you are sending out the signal of anger. So again, so far we've covered greed and we have anger. So, and again, most individuals know about anger and angry people and so forth. But again, anger and hatred is at the root cause of all of the major atrocities and hatred. We have racism, things of that sort, major crimes have been done throughout history in the name of racism. Some individuals does not believe in equality, and that all boils down to, again, not knowing who you are, because if you knew who you are, you would understand that we are all equal I am not better than you, you are not better than me. At the core, you might have more things, material things, or you might be more this or that, and from a material perspective, but at the core of who we all are, no one is better than nobody. Everybody is the same. However, because of, again, greed, anger, and hatred, we tend to believe that this race, my race is better than your race, my color is better than your color, my money is more powerful than yours, my house is bigger than yours, my car is better than yours. So therefore, we tend to develop arrogance because of this greed, anger, and hatred, arrogance and ignorance, arrogance, ignorance, and even all type of other, all type of ways that we feel that we could belittle others, and we tend to do that again out of all ignorance. So I hope by now we're starting to see where this is going. And then when we I think anger, hatred, and all of that is pretty much clear, understanding that we affect each individual, not we don't affect uh, ourselves as individuals only, we also affect the masses as well. We see anger, greed, hatred being affected in all type of countries, religions, different things of the sort, mass death, a lot of killing and all type of things, atrocities throughout the world because of these two things. And again, anger is the same on the scale. It's just because you are not happy. So sorry, greed on the scale, happiness on one end is because again you're not being content, not being happy with what you have. So you feel that you need more, and you are willing to do everything at its cost to get more. So you feel like happiness is you will do whatever it takes to get it. So you become greedy. However, you don't realize the only reason you have the greed is because you don't know who you are. And then anger and hatred is the same thing. Happiness on one scale, the spectrum, and then anger and hatred on the other hand. Anger being that this person made me unhappy. This situation made me hate you because I am unhappy about this situation. So I hate my situation because I am not happy. You see, happiness is always going to be on one end, and the opposite emotion is always going to be on the other end. So now we're going to look at the main cause, which is the most important of all of them, is ignorance or stupidity. In some religions, such as, again, Christianity, they would use the word sin. And sin is pretty much to fall short, to not meet the mark. And so, however, when we look at from a Eastern perspective, Buddhist, Hinduism, and so forth, we tend to use the word ignorance, if I may say. Ignorance or stupidity would be the same thing as sin. However, sin is something that you do, physically. I stole something, or I took something from you, or I harmed you physically, or I lied, or I cheated, or something of that sort. Sin is more so of an action type of word per se. You have to do something to fall short per se. However, ignorance is something that is not so much of a doing, is so much as a being. You are ignorant because you do not know your being. You sin because you do not know who you are. And that is the root cause of all the video, all of the suffering, all of the pain is not knowing who you are. And at the root core of all the videos that I create is promoting this knowing thyself. So you see that the root cause of the greed is because of not being happy and content or what you want. The root cause of the anger and the hatred is at the root cause, happiness being the root cause, and then not being happy, thinking that somebody is more better than you or less than you, or someone made you feel a some way, feeling a separation from that somebody. And again, that is also connected to not knowing who you are. But again, back to ignorance being the root cause of all of it. Without being, if you are not ignorant, then there would be less greed, there would be less anger, there would be less everything if the true self was actually known. So we see when we break it down on a much deeper level, a much deeper level, at its core, ignorance is at the core. So the three deadly sins is, again, from a Buddhist perspective, greed, anger, and ignorance. And again, anger is the same thing as hatred or aversion. So greed, anger, and ignorance. But again, ignorance is the most important of them all, because once the ignorance goes away, then the greed will go away, and then the anger will go away, then the suffering will go away as well. So what is root cause of all of our pain and suffering is ignorance. And the solution again is to simply know thyself. Knowing thyself is the only way, the only true way that we can eliminate the greed, the anger, the hatred, and so forth and so on. But until we come to this understanding, we will always have these feelings and these problems pervading our lives and being the primary cause of our pain and suffering, projecting, thinking that the pain and suffering is coming from some external thing. You caused this, you caused me feel this way, you did this to me, I'm gonna do this to you. And again, because of ignorance, not knowing who we are at the core is the root cause of what is causing all of the problems. So until one knows thyself, then these problems are always going to persist, always going to exist, and we cannot do anything about it until we find a solution, which is to know thyself. And so the ignorance again is not being ignorant of what day it is, or being ignorant about some scientific understanding, the understanding the molecules or understanding the atoms and things of that sort. Yes, you may be ignorant in some areas of life, or you might be ignorant towards somebody's nature, or you might be ignorant to a certain fact. But however, from a spiritual perspective, from this perspective, when we use the word ignorant, we are talking about not knowing thyself. And if you want to further know, I think there was a good video that also that I created that was titled "Who Am I?" I think that was the name of the video. Go and check that out. In fact, all of the videos that I create, you're gonna find some more information about coming to the self-realization and self-inquiry and knowing who you are. Except maybe my introduction videos. I think there's 2 or 3 introduction videos. I don't really go too much into this who am I. I just was wanted to give you guys an understanding of who who I was. I found as uh, as a person, what made me, how I got the name Triple P and things of that sort, the 2 introduction videos. But however, the majority of the videos pretty much is based around, in fact, all of the videos are based around this, who am I? So again, go and watch any of these videos, and all of these videos are going to connect the dots. It's going to give you guys some type of clarity and better understanding of who am I. So with that being said, again, the 3 deadly poisons, they again are not harmful just only to you, but they are harmful to the collective, to society as a whole. Greed, anger, and ignorance. But again, the main root cause of all of the pain and suffering is ignorance. So until one comes to know thyself, that's only then all of these things could be eliminated. That's like the Bible, Christos says, my people perish because of lack of knowledge. And that is the root cause. That is the root of why I'm creating these videos, because I'm trying to share some knowledge, some wisdom, and some understanding, because only then the individuals would be able to know where to look to find themselves, because we tend to always look outward, thinking that the outward, we're going to find ourselves outwardly, but the only place we can find ourselves is inwardly. So with that being said, I'm going to end this video. And once again, I thank each and every one of you guys for sticking around as long. Please like, share, and subscribe. And again, as usual, Triple P, and I'm out. Oh.